Look, if you were watching Nine News on Monday night, you would have heard this exclusive story from reporter Claire Todd-Hunter. It turns out that the land this Prasad family brought is identified as high flood risk. Now, it's a very sad story and a very important reminder to anyone looking to buy and build their property portfolio. It's obviously a very expensive lesson to learn. Here's a little bit of that story.
It was advertised as rare vacant land for a buyer looking to build. On the surface, perfect for Kaishal and Prane as they moved from New Zealand with their 2 children, snapping up the Jimboomba quarter of an acre in late 2021 for $265,000.
We thought my goodness, we just got a bargain.
But things didn't go to plan. Prane suffering a stroke shortly after the settlement, Kaishal having to take up a second job. So they abandoned their dream to build.
We had it on the market for more than a year. We are struggling to sell it.
Now they've realised why. It's because council won't approve a house on the land.
All our hard-earned money, our family's dreams. We have lost $265,000.
In fact, council hasn't allowed building on the site for almost a decade.
There you go. That is a very sad story, and that's a very important reminder, as I said, to anyone looking to buy and build their property portfolio. James Fitzgerald is the Managing Director of Custodian and the author of Bulletproof Investing. He joins me on the phone now. So if you've got any property investment-related questions or queries, give us a buzz on 133 882. 133 882. He's also happy to answer any of your questions. Morning, James.
Morning, Bill. How are you going?
Good, thank you, mate. It's nice to talk to you again. How does something like this happen in this particular case? I think we were talking $265,000 of this couple's hard-earned money.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough listen, isn't it? You know, first of all, you have a lot of sympathy for the poor Prasad family, but that's everyone's worst nightmare. I think ultimately, like everything in life, right, if it's a bargain or it seems too good to be true, it generally is, and you know, bargain often referred to someone else's problem, really. So I think you just got to be careful when something does seem too good to be true, or a real bargain, can't believe it. You know, that's when the sirens should be sort of flashing, I think.
Well, some data from Compare the Market shows just over 29% of prospective buyers don't conduct their due diligence, and over 79% don't check flood maps. What are the cautionary tales out of this, obviously, and what laws are there around disclosure between sellers and buyers?
Oh, look, I mean, I'll probably leave the vendor and agent sort of disclosure obligations to someone who lives and breathes that, but I certainly think that probably doesn't pass the pub test or the sniff test there. But putting that aside, I think ultimately we don't know what we don't know, do we? And I wrote in Bulletproof Investing that I think the first protocol for anyone looking to invest and particularly say buy or build a property is try and find someone that can mentor or guide you, and whether that's a family member, a friend, someone who's done it. And if you're not fortunate enough to have that, I think you're honestly best placed paying some sort of professional who does this day in, day out, because they just help you to avoid some of these pitfalls and as I say, open your eyes to some of the things that you don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think disclosure is, I can disclose I'm a licensed property agent and an auctioneer, and I had this issue with selling my late mother's own property. Everything was displayed. You have to display and have full and open disclosure, and we did that. And the buyer who ended up buying it wanted to do something with the property in terms of subdivision, and then hadn't done any homework or any of his own due diligence, and didn't look at any of the due diligence that was displayed during the campaign, and wanted to pull out of the deal. And I said, well, you can't. And he accused me of not disclosing. I said, well, it's all there for you. All the flood maps, all of the restrictions on the property, all of the zonings, and it's all there. So it's up to you. I said, what homework did you do? What due diligence? And he said, I did none. I said, well, there you go.
And building can be tough, right? Building's tough even at the best of times for people that know what they're doing. So I think if anyone, my advice would be, if anyone's thinking of building, just make sure you reach out to someone who's done a bit of building in the past, because I think they'll open your eyes to some things to think about or questions to ask that you just don't know to think about or ask.
Yeah, yeah. So any other tips you've got with the market? It's so crowded and busy at the moment, isn't it, with buyers, particularly young buyers, first-time buyers, perhaps about, being keen and eager to rush in and purchase something?
Yeah, well, Bill, I think there's more buyers than sellers at the moment, isn't there? And so I think anything you can do to just give yourself an edge, for me, it would be getting in contact with a mortgage broker or banker and try and just get your finances up to speed, figure out what you can afford to borrow, what you might be comfortable to borrow, the repayments and that sort of thing. And if you can sort of get yourself maybe even pre-approved, that just means you're going to be able to compete with good terms and move ahead quickly, because opportunities will inevitably come up and you are competing against others. And if you could just do a little bit of preparation that gets you a step or two ahead of others that are looking at the same time, I think that's all you can do is control the things within your control and just try and put your best foot forward and, as I say, follow the advice of someone that might have been there as well.
Yeah. That's a good tip. Now, if anyone's got a question, if you're listening to James and you want to ask him a question, you can either text it into me on 0499 880 882, or you can call in and ask the question yourself on 133 882. He's got a lot of experience and he won't bite. He's that author of Bulletproof Investing. We're getting we've got an email question coming in for you from Jim from Alderley, who wants to know about when you look at a house on sale and it needs extensions, maybe a new garage, how can you check development restrictions quickly so that you can put an offer in? That's a good question, because sometimes, and again, as a licensed auctioneer, I've noticed this a few times on the day of the auction. Someone will want to come in and sign in late to bid, and then they'll have all these questions, and they'll have not looked at it, but they'll want to compete and want to try and buy the property. What do you do if you're trying to make a decision in a hurry?
I think the best thing you can do is pick up the phone and give the council a call. I don't know. I'd imagine, Bill, you've had to do that in your travels. Having to prepare for disclosing things. Council, they can pull all this stuff up and give you a lot of information quickly. And then at the very least, it'll alert you to the things that you need to be aware of. That's going to be the best port of call. Obviously, the ultimate way to cover off all your risk would be to get a builder to come out who's licensed, who can maybe quote something up and take a look at the property with you. You won't always have the time to do that. That'd be the starting point for me. I don't know, Bill, if you've got your own tips having to figure out what you can and can't disclose.
That's pretty sound advice. I think that's great advice. Have you got any other general tips at the moment for people trying to purchase in this current market?
Yeah, I think cash flow's the number one thing for you to be wary of. Interest rates. A lot of people talk about interest rates. They're going to go up and down. That's what happens over time. If you're looking to buy, make sure that you work out what you can afford. Work out what the repayments are, maybe put a bit of a buffer there, and then ultimately, work out what you're willing to do and really stick to what you can afford. My advice, I've given so many friends advice that do not lose a great home that ticks all your boxes for the sake of an extra 10 or 20,000 if you can afford it. If it's affordable for you, obviously, is the caveat to that. But, I think, the market is going up 1% to 2%. You'll make that back fairly quickly. And as I say, the extra 10 or 20,000, if you're going to own it for 10, 20 years maybe, it's not a lot of money. You don't want to lose an opportunity for that.
That's a good point, because the market is only going one way at the moment. So you will get it back, and you'll should take some comfort in that. Mark from Kalanga's texted in. He says, if you're in the same situation as the Prasad family, do you know, James, if there's any recourse? Can they sue the sellers?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, any form of suing takes a bit of money, but there would be obligations on the agent and the vendor themselves to disclose, say if the area's flood zone and can't be built. They'd obviously have to contact a lawyer to see what the steps might be. But yeah, it's a messy situation, and probably just don't know enough about what was and wasn't disclosed. Because to your earlier point with your example, Bill, often it is disclosed. It maybe could have been more prominently disclosed, but I would be surprised if it hadn't been disclosed. If it hadn't been, there might be some recourse for the Prasad family. Yeah.
Well, let's hope they can have some sort of success down the track somewhere, because it sounds like they're in need of a bit of a change in luck, change in fortunes. Hey, I really appreciate your time, James. Thanks very much for having a chat with us.
Always a pleasure, Bill. Have a great day.
You too. James Fitzgerald, Managing Director of Custodian. As I said, the author of Bulletproof Investing. If you got any property stories similar to the Prasads and similar to the one that I mentioned, if you had any issues like that or any problems with disclosure in terms of properties you've looked at and bought, or any war stories off some of your property decisions, give us a buzz on 133 882 or text on 0499 880 882. This is the Mornings. You're on 4BC and, of course, across the Resonate network as well. I'm Bill McDonald. It is 20